Talking about the lumber industry. Now, I have been trying to share my information from the boots on the ground perspective when it comes to the lumber industry and how it is that the demand for lumber is showing the signs of the worsening economy, and how it is that the activity that is happening within the economy can be very reflective inside of the lumber market. So ultimately, never has there been a time in the human existence has there been a moment when they weren't trying to put a structure together. Like, there has always been the human trying to get there. And when you think about what it is that the demand for lumber is representing to the economy, it is showing economic activity. And so when you are seeing the demand for lumber depleting and the inventories dropping and the prices coming down, this is a very bad sign for the economy. It's showing less economic activity out there. I mean, if you just think about it, like, how can they make houses any cheaper if you don't have more houses being built? So if you understand that kind of simple principle, the demand for lumber is going to show economic activity in the direction in which that people would normally think this is a good thing. More houses being built, more economic activity, more demand for lumber. Now, as we see that lumber demand dropping, and dropping significantly too, 531 per thousand, I believe that's what it was before we started this video, is incredibly cheap lumber. Like, I have lumber quotes on my desk right now that has 2x4s down at 490 per thousand. Some prices are down into the 300 per thousand. So far under the current futures price, it is ridiculous. The lumber futures close in about 10 days. And when you see prices this low, there is no demand happening. Very, very little. Now, the consequence of this is that one of the major suppliers to the United States is Canada. And now, as much as the misinformation that gets pushed about the Canadian tariffs or lumber tariffs on Canadian lumber that's going to drive the prices ever increasingly higher, it is absolutely incorrect. Nothing could be further from the truth. I have tried to share that information with people time and time again, and nobody really wants to consider that. And even today, I still find the news articles who are pushing that misinformation. We have lumber prices are cheap. They are incredibly cheap. The tariffs on Canadian lumber did not increase the prices. What it did is it really put a burden on Canada. Canada has us, the United States, as their main customer. When we don't buy the Canadian lumber, that is devastating to them. And when you think about who it is that buys lumber, Canada cannot consume as much as they produce. The United States can consume all it produces and then some. But Canada produces far more than they can consume. They have to buy it. They have to find a buyer. And if the United States has cut them off, they will reach out there to the globe to find anybody who is willing to buy their lumber. Here's a problem. Nobody buys the American-sized lumber. They're all on the metric. The United States uses imperial, inches, not millimeters. So when you think about when you saw up this lumber, they are sawing it up for one specific customer. The United States. We're the only ones who essentially buys that size lumber. The rest of the world buys in the metric sizes. So as the mills in Canada seek out a new buyer, because they have to find somebody, if the United States has told them, no, we don't want your lumber, then Canada is going to be like, well, we're going to have to manufacture it for somebody else. And once you have established that trade, that new partnership, it doesn't come back. Millions of dollars and years of investment it takes to re-gear these mills up to then build a product for a different customer. We won't buy that lumber. We don't use it here in the United States. Once you have shifted that partnership, it doesn't come back. This is a sign of the times. This isn't a good thing that's happening here. As you watch the idea of what it would ever have been to have cheaper lumber coming into the United States, Canada is our main supplier of that cheap lumber. This is going to be a major problem in the future if we ever wanted to ramp up demand. Even if we wanted to buy, we couldn't. If they switch their gearing, their sizing of what lumber they use, it won't be coming back. Even if we wanted it, it won't. We can't use it. This is going to be a major problem if this actually comes to fruition in a major way, where these Canadian mills seek out some sort of customer out there anywhere in the globe, and the globe is telling them, produce it in a metric size and we'll buy it. And then the United States says, if you put it into a metric size, we won't buy it. Then how is it that you could ever possibly have a cheap lumber industry? You won't. You'll have very expensive lumber, because the United States, although can provide all the lumber we want, will not be able to provide the amount of cheap lumber that Canada can provide that keeps the prices down. This is the problem we will face going into the future. I've been sharing this warning for some time. It doesn't matter how many trees you cut down. It's not the trees that you cut down that's not the problem. It's the sawing of those trees. Milling that stuff up into boards and then bringing those boards to the projects. When those projects ramp up, if you have a demand for lumber that starts to increase and you don't have the supply for it, that is inelastic demand. Those projects need to go forward, and they will buy that lumber at any price. And if there is literally no lumber to buy because it is not manufactured in the size that is appropriate, you will find lumber prices skyrocketing. This is going to be a problem at some point in the future. These are the symptoms. When take a look at the link that I leave down in the description. It's talking about this. It's a very short video. If this continues, this is the problem that we will face. If this continues, is that more and more mills will seek out customers outside of the United States, and they will shift in the sizes that they produce, which will be an investment of time and money that will not be easily reversed. Watch it happen. I mean, it may happen a little bit, but if the pressure continues, it will happen more and more and more. And the more it happens, the more devastating of an event it's going to be for us. I don't know how many people can see this. You know? I know certainly it's not the mainstream media. It's not the talking heads out there. When I listen to them speak, they have it very backwards. They talk about the increase in lumber prices, and I'm over there in the corner going, listen, I sell lumber, and I have no idea what it is you're talking about, price increases. Never did I ever suspect there was going to be price increases. Not from the threat of tariffs, not the implementation of tariffs, none of it. Never once did I say that, right? That it was going to be shooting prices up on account of these problems. Many articles, many talking heads, many even other retail outlets talked about the concerns that they had in that they were starting to act preemptively and increasing their prices on the credible threat of what it was that was going to happen going into the future. And I thought to myself, what is it that those people are going to say? They're going to have to eat their own words. They're going to have to back up and apologize for increasing the prices on a credible threat of tariffs that did not increase the prices. What it's doing is we are losing our supplier. And it's not the supplier we need for the material. We can produce that ourselves. It's the supplier we need for good quality, cheap material, because that's what Canada provides. If we ever wanted to go on any kind of serious building spree in this country where we're providing a serious amount of new dwellings for people to be at, we're going to need cheap lumber, not expensive lumber, not difficult lumber, not lumber that's out of reach and out of supply. We need it very much in supply. We need it efficient, and we need it to flow quickly. And Canada is what is providing us with that efficiency. The more that this happens, where we lose that customer, the more difficult it's going to be for the average everyday person going into the future. This is something you need to be very concerned about. And right now, it doesn't seem like a big deal. Right now, it doesn't seem like it's any concern. That's when you should be concerned the most. Right? Be fearful when people are greedy, and greedy when people are fearful. And this is a very sad situation that we now face as I watch these if this continues, right? Watching these Canadian mills literally gear their product up for a customer that is not us, and we will literally not buy the product. It will be essentially useless to us. Can you imagine what that would be like? All right, 10 minutes into it, I'm going to keep it fairly short here. Hey, UE, how much carbon tax does the lumber industry pay in the States? Asking for a friend, couldn't tell you. What are you trying to say, Kirk? Oh, let's find out what Kirk is saying. I don't even know where Kirk's comment is. It's too far back there. All right, deplorable. Got to read deplorable's comments, right? All right, I might be naive on this, but retooling a factory to produce what a slightly different length shouldn't be that hard. Well, I don't think it's necessarily just the retooling of it in itself. I mean, yeah, I agree that it probably shouldn't be that hard. But when you think about the entire system, every single bit of it would then have to shift. Like the entire flow of material in one size would have to leave while a new flow came in. And this shifting of material, like every yard would be split in two, essentially, and the space, the availability, the trucking into, like, I can imagine the logistical nightmare that would begin to take place as you tried to separate these two different size materials to get one flowing in one direction and one in the other. Not saying it can't happen. I'm just saying, like, that seems like a very difficult task, right? And I don't know, what does it take to retool a mill to change sizes? I couldn't tell you. Lumber is always cheaper in winter. Europe uses lumber in 2-inch increments, 50 by 100. Like, what does 50 by 100 mean? All right, please creatively misspell words for the algo. Thank you, All Nighter, man. I really appreciate it. It makes YouTube suppress. It does. So comments, particular words, certain things, like the YouTube algorithm will pick it up. So if you do want to use them, like All Nighter says, kind of be creative with it so it doesn't come out something that'll trigger the algorithm. Thanks and understand, Maverick. Thank you. All right, computers now work out the efficient cutting. Can't see this being a big issue. I think the issue is that once you have produced the lumber in that particular size, like, once you start, I don't know how many people really look at it in this fashion, but to me, when I think about the lumber flowing through the industry, it's literally like a stream of water, like a pipeline, of lumber. And it's heading from the mill, it goes on trains, it hits these distribution hubs, and it starts branching off and going in different directions. To think, like, how this flow of material operates, and to disrupt that, to change that, and then bring it back, I don't think is something that's easily done. Like, once you have established that distribution network, it is very efficient and difficult to shift. Like here, even in the United States, when the mill curtailments and shutdowns and everything took place during COVID, and everybody pointed at that going, oh man, this is the devastating event. And I was thinking, man, this was leading up to this moment, right? I mean, we had 2019 with all kinds of videos here on the Uneducated Economist talking about mill curtailments and shutdowns that were leading up to COVID. When COVID kicked in, it just doubled the problem. Then we had stimulus checks and everybody bought the lumber and inventory dropped to almost nothing. This is the story that I shared in real time as it was happening. Everybody loved it. Now, when it shot up to $1,700 per thousand and everybody was losing their mind over lumber prices, and this was pretty dramatic too. You have to think, right now I sell a 2x4 for about $3.90, $3.80, something like that, right? $3.80 for a 2x4 8 standard and better kiln dried lumber. During the peak of the prices, I was selling that, well, I had them priced at, I wasn't selling a whole lot. I had them priced at $13.50 a piece, almost $10 more a stick today than I did back then. Now, back in 2018, I had lumber prices at $4.20 for the same piece. 2 years before COVID. Lumber was selling same 2x4, 8-foot, standing and better stud, $4.20. Today I'm selling it cheaper than I was back in 2018. Now, the problem that we found back in COVID is that when those lumber mills shut down and the inventory depletion took place and everybody got a stimulus check and they were like, oh man, I want to build a fence between me and my neighbor. I want to rebuild the deck. I want something nice in my house for my office to secure me away from everybody else out there. And they went down to the lumber yard and they started buying a lot of lumber. They zapped the inventory because the mills were not producing because of COVID. And then you had a whole bunch of people who went out there and started moving from the city to the urban areas, and the permit issuance and the demand for lumber, or demand for new home construction, demanded for lumber, absolutely exploded. This is what sent prices to $1,700 per thousand. Nobody in their right mind would be paying $1,350 for a 2x4 stud unless you were absolutely forced to. Well, if you sign contract, that's inelastic demand. Now you are forced to pay a higher price. All the manipulation in the world, that's fine, that's cool, you can talk about that, but this was led up years in advance through environmental issues, management issues, all kinds of stuff that was happening within the forestry industry up in British Columbia for a very long time before COVID hit. So it was very easy to see it. And so when I called it out at 1,700 and people were like, man, this is lumber, this is like manipulation, this is Fed money printing, this is all this stuff. And I said, no way. The mills are firing back up. Everybody's going to work. They are going to produce as much lumber as they possibly can so long as they're paying a high price for it. And you are going to see this lumber price absolutely plummet as the efficiency is going to come right back to this industry because it's 100% domestic. That's why nobody else could see it this way, is because they thought it was dollar destruction, but it was actually severing of partnerships. That's what really did it. So when lumber came back into production, it was domestic energy, domestic labor, domestic transportation, domestic everything, including domestic demand. And so everything just brought right back to the efficiency that lumber has within this nation. It was no doubt in my mind we were going to see the prices plummet. And that's exactly what happened. If we were depending on Canada for the lumber, we wouldn't have been able to tell the same story. Do we need Canadian lumber? Absolutely not. Do we need cheap Canadian quality lumber? It would certainly benefit this country. Without it, it's going to be expensive. That's all there is to it. Right now, you're not going to see it because there's no demand. The moment that demand kicks in, you're going to really see the problems start to show up. And if these people start tooling differently, all the distribution that they have built up to our border will no longer be there. The flow of material isn't going to just come into the country if it's a different size. And that's the difference. They are depending on some customer somewhere. They don't consume everything they produce. We consume everything we produce. Huge difference. We can demand a particular size and then make other nations produce that size if we are their main customer. But if we're not the main customer anymore, they'll produce for any customer out there. And if everybody else is using the metric system, how many more customers do they have outside of the United States than they have inside of the United States? All right, what time is it? Okay, a few more minutes here. Canadian lumber would be pretty decent, slow growing, but solid, though I would imagine 3D printing for small structures is the goal eventually. You know, here's the thing that I have to answer about all the stuff. People say, well, why don't they do it out of bricks? Why don't they do it out of concrete? Why don't they do it out of all these different materials? And why don't? I don't know, you tell me, because if they could do it out of a cheaper, easier, more efficient quality material at a better price, then they would do it. Like, there ain't nobody stopping you from doing whatever the hell you want. Right? Like, nobody's stopping me from building a concrete house. Nobody's stopping me from building it out of anything I want. I would build it out of lumber because it's the fastest, easiest, most efficient way of doing it. Now, whether or not that just happened to be the way it showed up in our nation, because we had such a vast forest industry up here in the Pacific Northwest and across the nation, actually, So maybe that was the reason. I know that if you had a small vehicle, even like this Suburban, I could piece together a house in the middle of nowhere if I used lumber. Just pick it a piece at a time up there. You can't necessarily do that with concrete. You have to be near a concrete facility. You have to be able to pump the concrete up there. But lumber, you can be in the middle of nowhere and you don't need much to get it there. I mean, really, you could carry every piece in by hand if you wanted. Lumber is a very different, more efficient, faster. I don't know how to defend anything else against it. It's just the way that it is here in this nation because it's so well established. How are you going to compete against it? I mean, if there was something better, they would be doing it. Yeah, 3D, whatever, if there was better, they'd be doing it more. And maybe it will take over. I honestly think it's going to be more into the cross-laminated timber industry that's going to be the next big thing. And it's going to be more wood, right? Building high-rises, apartment complexes, hospitals, hotels, schools, all out of timber. Yeah. And that's a crazy thing to think, but that's really coming to more of an existence, not only here in the United States, but definitely in Europe. So as we find better uses of the lumber and the wood, the fiber that would not be suitable necessarily for sawing into the lumber itself, these things can be created into a piece of material that is now more superior to what a lot of people would say is a steel and concrete building. It's like taking inferior wood product and making a superior building material out of it. That's what I think is coming to the future. Only thing they're building is centers, and those are not made of wood. Europe was deforested by the 1700s. Perfect timing to find the Americas. Big trees made big mess for big ships, big trade. He who controls the oceans. Oh, wow, Wayne. I never really thought about it like that, but that makes a whole lot of sense. I mean, right? I think that's mainly the reason you just keep doing things that you know best. Yeah. The stimulus helicopter money is what caused the mania in home lumber prices. Well, I mean, I don't think it was just the stimulus. I think that had a lot to do with it. But I think like that inventory depletion and shutdowns and mill curtailments and all the devastating events that were happening that I was reporting on throughout 2019 had a whole bunch to do with it too, right? Like, yeah, I'm sure we probably wouldn't have seen the massive 1,700 per thousand price if it wasn't for the fact that people got a stimulus check and went down there and zapped the lumber yard of its lumber. Yeah. See, this is what's crazy about it is like, what I noticed first was the 4x4s. 4x4 8-foot pressure treated lumber came up in short supply. And I called my supplier and I'm like, hey man, I need 4x4 8s. And he was just like, yeah, you and everybody else don't have any. And I'm like, well, when are you going to get some? I don't know. And I'm like, no, wait a minute here. 4x4, 8-foot, like it 10s, 12s, doesn't matter, right? They're all gone. The 4x4 is the cornerstone of every single outdoor project, right? Like it is the fence, it's the deck, it's everything. If you don't have 4x4, you're not doing an outdoor project because everything is essentially attached to it. So when he told me I'm not getting 4x4s, not in any size, I thought, that's it. I'm not selling fence packages. I'm not going to sell any deck packages. I'm not going to sell any of these things because there's not going to be anything to actually build off of. Even if you could get all the rest of the material, you need the 4x4 to get started. So when that came up short, and I didn't know when I was going to get any more, and I'm looking at the mills, and the mills are producing what is in demand. Well, what was in demand at the time? 2x4s and 2x6s, plate, stock, and studs. because that's the wall material that the builders were looking for during COVID, or right after the COVID kicked in and people were demanding demanding the new buildings as they were moving away from the city, and the mills were already curtailed and shut down. When they go into production, they're going to produce what is selling. And what is selling? 2x4, 2x6 plate, stock, and studs. And that was literally the only thing that they were producing. They weren't producing 4x4s for the pressure treated company to buy and then make it treat and then send out. They just weren't producing. They couldn't find them anywhere because all the mills were producing essentially two things: 2x4s and 2x6s, plate, stock, and stud. Were there other mills producing beam stock and the bigger stuff and the wides? Absolutely. But it was such high demand that it was essentially unavailable. You couldn't find it. Right? And this was the problem that we faced back then. I reported on it many, many times. I tried to share the information ahead of time for people so that they could get their projects done. Right? And a lot of people called me up and shook my hand and thanked me personally for sharing that information with them at the time. I can only share what it is that I am saying. Okay. And this is something, again, like when I think about how the demand for lumber is so low right now that we have prices that are less than what they were back in 2018. This also is a new futures contract that has added rail costs going from the Pacific Northwest out to a hub in Chicago. Right? There's added rail costs going on too that nobody really incorporates into the comparison. So when you think about what it is that we are selling lumber for today, it is substantially cheaper than what we were selling it for prior to COVID. That's what's scary about it. Like, I don't know how much that added rail cost goes into it. I mean, there's suspicion of 100 per thousand. I mean, but even at that, like, I mean, there's even more. People say that it's even more than that. But even if it was 100 per thousand, you think about it, that takes us down to like 430 per thousand on lumber futures right now, if you remove that added rail cost to it. And I know this is confusing for a lot of people, but damn, this is what I look at and go like, is anybody else not seeing this? And why is it just me? Why is it that I'm finding reports from mainstream media, talking heads, saying that lumber prices are the reason why construction costs are high? And I'm like, where the hell are they getting this delusional information from? It's not even the case. All right, 292 watching. Don't forget to drop a like. Thank you so much, Standard Nursery. I really appreciate it. And yes, please do. 302 people watching with 73 likes. Let's see if we can get it up to 200, 300 likes before we end the live stream. We have about another 5 minutes left. So just take that moment. Go hit that like. Go hit that thumbs up button. And we'll get this YouTube algorithm to spread this around for everybody. I remember you reporting on the lumber industry schemes. All the stuff that usually goes to the states now creates excess supply, ruining prices for the mills. Yeah. Wood down, paint through the roof. Yeah. Right. Everything else is up. But I do have to say, like, some things are becoming more efficient, even though the price didn't come down. Like, think about it. Time is money. So if it cost you like twice as much and it took you 3 times as long, and then now it's still twice as much, but it only takes you it used to take you 2 months, but now you can get it in 2 weeks. That's a lot of time. And that time is savings. That time is money. And although you may not find the price of it has come down, the efficiency of it has, and that time is money, and that is a deflationary aspect. Again, like, nobody's going to really see it that way, because, they're just going to go by the price tag of it. But the efficiency is a huge portion of it, right? I mean, time is money. And if you recognize that you're getting the product cheaper because it's coming in faster, even though the price hasn't come down, again, that's a deflationary aspect that is happening that not a lot of people are going to recognize. And I see that somewhat in windows. Like, it's weird. The window manufacturing industry, it's like, I used to be able to get a window in 10 days, and it stretched out to 2 months. And then it came in, like, I could get it in 2 weeks, and then it would go out to a month, and then 3 weeks. And so it's just like, man, this particular industry is odd. Like, I don't know why It is so all over the place. Like I should probably do some more research into it. But as I found that like timeline had stretched out as long as it did, I was hoping for one day that it would stretch or that it would shrink back down to that 10-day scenario, which was so awesome. Like you could tell people, hey man, as you're getting towards the roof, let me know and I'll get the windows ordered. Right now, you have to get the windows ordered before you even start framing, or else you're going to be, sitting around waiting for windows to show up. All right, 287 people watching. Thank you so much for continuing to hit that like button. Moses, bricks help alleviate some of the worldwide dollar demand. Yep, I agree with that. It's not as bad as some people say. Usually, if you can't get timely health care in Canada, the system will cover your costs for getting it done out of country. Huh. I just like getting actual human being perspectives. Howdy, good afternoon. Well, good afternoon, Magic Moon. I like the name. All right, gotta hit them likes. Nice people act like universal health care is just horrible. Huh. Why does the BRICS nation matter? You're sent out by signals. It's time to invest. I don't know. You guys, this is the thing. People ask me all the time, when is lumber prices, what's going to happen with it next year or something like that. And I'm thinking, okay, well, wait a minute here. Like, there's no way that anybody could tell you what the future is going to have, right? Like, you can only guess at what it is that may happen from some of the political environments and stuff like that, or suspicions. Even the idea of tariffs, like people are like, dude, what's it going to do to lumber prices? I'm like, nothing. Probably nothing. I don't think it's going to do anything. And people are like, dude, can't you come up with a better answer than that? And I'm like, I don't know, man. I'm going to jump up and down and scream my head off and pull my hair out and then try and make a bunch of money off of your fear-mongering video, or tell you the truth of what it is that I see, right? And then what happened, right? Lumber prices stayed low. Here's the problem. Most people don't see it in the fashion of supply and demand. It's just, that's it. All the rest of it is interfering with those two things. If you see the supply and demand issue and you just look for the supply and you look for the demand, then you can start to see where prices are going to head, whether up, down, or sideways, right? So here we have a low demand, low demand and low supply. These two have a trigger moment. What is it? When the demand starts to increase. That's it. Is demand increasing? No. Do you think demand's going to increase next year? Well, even if you made a decision to build a house today, how long would it take before you actually bring that house into fruition? Now, I understand there's some people out there who really know how to build a house. Like, they can knock it out in no time. You want a house right there? Give me 2 weeks. Bam, right now. But for the most part, people have to go through a logistical hell, right? Permit issuance, lining up contractors, getting all the stuff, even, who knows, prepping the ground. There's a lot that goes into building a house from the time that you decide to the time that you actually start. So even if you were to make the decision today to build a house, how far into the future do you think it will be before the demand for lumber takes place? Right? Do you see anybody out there demanding to build a house today? I mean, I know there's a lot of people out there who wish that they had a house, who would scream, yes, go out there and build a house, but they can't afford it, right? The people who can afford it are out there building houses, and there's not a lot of them taking place right now. So if the demand for houses started to pick up in such a way that the builders are like, yes, I got a buyer, right? The demand increasing, one way or the other, whether it's interfered with by the government or the opportunities just present themselves, one way or the other, the demand has to increase. Once the demand increases, boom, what happens to the price of the available lumber? It starts to move up. How long into that scenario? How long does it take before the scenario is meeting the approval of the buyer? How long into the future does it take after that to actually start the house? You see how this is a very difficult question, but you can see what it is that's going to line up. You know what it is to look for. Buyer traffic, demand on the home builder sentiment. Focus on that one thing. When you see that start to move up, and it doesn't even have to go positive, just moving up in the positive direction, right? Not being flat or low like it is. I mean, it's incredibly suppressed. If you see home builder sentiment on buyer traffic start to increase, then what you are going to find is that the builders are going to get excited about that. They are going to be able to put a project together and actually have a customer. When that starts to happen, you're going to find the demand increase for lumber. When that takes place, lumber prices will start to move up. Depending on how long into the future and how long the mill curtailments and shutdowns and depression takes place within this industry, will result in the prices of however high the prices will go once the demand increases. How much? Demand versus supply. That's it. That's the only thing I really look at. Everything else is essentially kind of just interfering with those things in somewhat of a minute way. Yeah, and I know a lot of people are like, oh no, it's major. And I'll be like, okay, tell me again about how the tariffs are going to cause prices of lumber to go up. Right? Like, this is how, right? They're going to suppress the Canadian market to the point they're going to go find another customer out there because of the tariffs. And then when the demand for our lumber increases, even the removal of tariffs won't bring back cheap lumber because they're not making it in the size that we are using. You see, like, this is a problem. This is a major problem. But I can't talk about it anymore because it's a big, giant secret. No, I'm just kidding. I got to go back to work. Uneducated Economist. You guys let me know.